morning, everybody. Today, we are absolutely ready to have a fun podcast, the Energy News Beat podcast. My name is Stuart Turley, president of Sandstone Group, and we have Tracy Woods. He is the vice president of operations at AABE, the American Association of Blacks in Energy. And I'll tell you what, if he was a guard dog, he would be a pedigree. There is some cool things that Tracy has done. Over the years, he's gotten his degree from electrical engineering at Drexel University. He has been a facilities supervisor at PICO, at Exelon Company, and I hope I said that right, Tracy, so you can laugh at me later. You've been a manager at New Business Solutions, a general manager at operations at First Energy, general manager in constructions at Con Ed, and now you're the VP at operations at AABE. And I'll tell you what, Tracy, welcome to the podcast. And I just have really enjoyed getting to know you over this past bit. So thank you very much for stopping by.
Hey, I appreciate the invitation to hang out with you, Stu. And yeah, this is going to be fun. Many jobs in my energy career used to be a running joke at the one company. They said, well, you can't keep a job. But that was just, they said, you can't keep a job. Every couple of years, you're doing something differently. And at this point, looking back in the career, a lot of things that I learned, a lot of people. So it was exciting. I mean, I've learned a lot about this business. And one thing about energy, I got into it quite by accident. But it's been a thrill ride for more than 3 decades. So, yeah, I appreciate
that. Tell us about that accident, because did you trip and fall into energy, or did you fall off a high line? Weren't you a lineman?
At one point I was a lineman. I got into the business. I was at church, and a Sunday school teacher, a former Sunday school teacher, came up. I was hanging out with a couple of buddies of mine, and he said, "Hey, you guys, you interested in a job at the electric company?" And at that point, I was selling paints. I can't even tell you, below minimum wage. And so I said, yeah, sure. It seemed steady.
You cut out selling paint?
Yeah, I was, believe it or not, I used to work at a place called Buten's Paint. And we had a little jingle, Buten's, the paint and paper people. And that's how I had to answer the phone, Stu. And so, I get this offer to take a test for a meter reader job. And I started at PICO in 1984, as a meter reader. I go down there and take the test. And so my first job in the energy space was running from dogs and reading people's meters, But the great thing was, it was utility. And I had started an engineering degree, and they would pay for that. And in fact, I told them, I said, hey, I'll sweep the floor if you pay for my college. And, that was our deal early on. And so I went from being a meter reader, and then I saw the money that linemen made, and I thought that was a cool job. So I went to line school, and ended up climbing poles for a living, which I never imagined doing. And it's kind of a cowboy lifestyle, but it was fun. It was fun for a while. Then I went into substations. Probably spent half my career in substations, and those are right. Facilities that everybody drives by on the highway, and we don't think twice about it. But man, I learned to operate those and maintain. First day I walked into a substation, too, I was scared to death. And our guide, he said, keep your hands in your pockets. I mean, because it's just switches and, equipment all over the place.
Oh, so you could be fried up like a crispy critter. Remember those crispy critters?
Oh, yeah. I've cleared a lot of those. We've gotten calls for, hey, we got animal intrusion was called. And I've done my share of cleanup.
No, that's not good. What was the biggest animal you had to clean up?
Well, believe it or not, the worst one, we actually had a person get into substation in Philadelphia. And we got to the top, we saw clothing throughout the substation, but his sneakers were melted to the top of a transformer. It just gives you some idea of the amount of current that went through his body. So that's probably the worst cleanup we had. But Yeah, yeah. People were getting.
I'm sorry. I was being a smart aleck, Trey. You
Yeah,
just
well,
stumped me
yeah,
on that one. Whoa.
yeah. We've
I
had.
was not ready for burn up sneakers.
Yeah,
Oh
yeah,
no.
yeah. We've had some pretty tough stuff, but yeah. We used to say we have a saying, particularly in the field part of this business. We call the current electricity the wizard, and we say the wizard does not forgive. So if you get between the wizard and wrong
Oh.
places, the wizard does not forgive. So yeah.
Neither does my wife, but we'll leave that alone.
I hear that.
How fun.
Yeah.
So that talk about a tripping from paint to energy, getting your degree. Tell me some of the most fun things that you learned. I mean, you've got some big names on there. You got Con Ed and you got First Energy. What were
Yeah.
those like? Because you're a who's who here. I mean, that's kind of some cool stuff there,
Yeah,
Tracy.
I tell you, Con Ed, Con Ed was the last utility job I had before coming to AABE. And some of the things that happened in Con Ed, you just can't make this stuff up. But I remember Sandy, Superstorm Sandy. So,
Oh, yep.
we actually had two meteorologists on staff at Con Edison. And so we got the report, and, you've seen those weather reports where the track of the storm. And the track of the storm was altogether wrong. And so when it got to the New York State area, more often than not, 98% of the time, it turns out to sea. And we breathe a sigh of relief because we've got wind and rain, but, not the storm
Yep.
coming inland. So now we see this, and the meteorologist said, they use several services, and they said, 4 out of 5 say that the storm turns into New York City. And we're talking to the meteorologist kind of like, no, that can't happen, because if that does, we'll have this much water in New York, and that can't happen because and he's listening to us saying, prepare for the worst.
I'm going to interrupt 1 second. Your
Yeah.
accent went to New Yorker real heavy. You started talking about New York, Tracy, and you went to New Yorker right away. I'm
It was,
sorry. Let's get back to your story. I'm sorry,
yeah.
but that was funny.
But I'm just thinking, those conversations, and
Yep.
we ended up having to shut down the steam loop. And for a lot of people, they don't realize it's a steam loop that powers a good bit of New York.
Yeah.
The Empire State Building is on steam. The Museum of Modern Art is on steam, and a number of these structures are on steam in New York. And in order to protect the steam loop, we had to shut it down because we have seawater coming in.
Oh,
It's cold, the pipes are superheated, and that collision causes water hammer, a lot of damage, that kind of thing. And it had been a while since we cut down. In fact, we didn't really have all the ways to restore it. We just knew we had to take it out of service. And so we did that, and it was real crazy. And the steam plants in New York are on the rivers. So we got the Hudson River on one side, and then East River on the other.
right.
And we had water inundation. So quickly, when the water came in, all our pumps and motors, many of them are in the basement, and they quickly corroded overnight. Stu, I haven't seen that kind of corrosion that happens that quickly. So my
Overnight?
team, yeah,
That's almost like a
overnight.
science fiction kind of a
It was
thing, isn't it?
crazy. My team, I had a group we called, we went and we maintained steam plants. So we had to pull the motors, but then we had to refurbish them and get them back. And Sandy, what do you say, Murphy's Law happened just before the heating season in New York. So we were under a really tight schedule. There's a plant that I maintained. One of my shops was we call Van Ness shop in the Bronx. So we pulled these pumps and motors. We had to refurbish them in a quick turnaround to get the steam loop back in service. So I'm happy to say, really a credit to my team. These guys were like the Marines.
Nice.
And so they called them the Can-Do Gang. So these are some of the same people that helped get New York back after 9/11. Some of the same guys had the pleasure to lead, and in short order, record time, we were able to get the steam loop back. But it was long days and nights, So Sandy, I remember Sandy well because there was water everywhere. The night that Sandy hit, I was checking crews, and only Times Square had lights. So you got the east side of the city, Manhattan is in the dark and stayed in the dark for a number of days. But Times Square was still on. But
Now, for our listeners and viewers, those pumps, if I remember which ones those are big pumps and they're old pumps.
Yes, they are.
So those were a nightmare if I'm thinking of the same ones. Is that correct?
That's right. You're spot on.
Oh,
They are old. The original, in
man.
many cases, the original manufacturers are no longer around. So, and the refurbishment meant taking them apart, cleaning them
Yep.
all, drying them out. There's a huge oven. In fact, there's a video on YouTube about some of our restoration. So it
Okay.
was a process that, were it not for the Van Ness shops at Con Ed, we would not have made the deadline. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. It was fun. I
I,
mean, looking back, it was fun. But it's really about a
what's your
dedicated.
definition of fun, Tracy?
you know, when the going gets tough, I love to be, part of, it was the same thing I learned as a lineman. When I got the line, call for lineman, typically restoration is when, it's raining or sleeting sideways and everybody else is, hunkering down. That's when you get the call to come put it all back. And so, yeah, that's my fun.
My hat is off to the linemen. They are cowboys. No matter where they are in the country, they're cowboys.
That's
Storm
right.
hits, and you see them coming from all over the country,
That's
helping
right.
each other out.
Yeah.
Your brother, I mean, those are a bunch of brothers
Oh, no doubt.
out there, band of
And
brothers
yeah,
on that.
it was really a pleasure to work with them because, when power is out, when utilities are out, that's when your customer really needs you. Other than that,
Yep.
they see you on a bill every month, and that's probably not the way you want to be known. And so we in the services had an opportunity to restore, and people you don't think about the light switch till the lights don't come on when you flip the switch, and then
Right.
to be able to restore that's fun stuff, man. Yeah.
Man. All right. So you've had your career all the way from lineman to up and working in with the big energy companies.
Right.
And then you get your opportunity at AABE. Tell me about how you got started at the American Association of Blacks.
Yeah. So, I after Sandy and a couple of things in New York, I ended up bumping into Paula Glover, who was a former president, CEO of AABE, and Paula and I had been friends for years throughout AABE. And AABE was really important to me. In fact, the members at AABE were like a network for me. I remember my first AABE conference. I have a whole bunch of folks who, in many ways, were doing some of the same work that I was doing, but they always wanted to help you out. Life with AABE extended well beyond the conferences. And so, but before then, I hadn't really had a chance, and I was thinking about a career change. So I see Paula, Philadelphia. It was Philadelphia, October 2013. And so we were doing, Philadelphia was doing a BEAM event, Black Energy Awareness Month. And
Cool.
Paula was a keynote speaker at PGW. So she's leaving, and I said, hey, great to see you. We're catching up. And she said, so what are you doing these days? Because, I'm there in Philadelphia, just left New York, had been in New Jersey, had been in Chicago. And she said, where are you and what are you doing? So I said, hey, I'm actually considering doing some new things. And she said, well, interesting, you should mention that because I need a vice president of operations at the national office. And
Nice.
I said, yeah, I'd be willing to, to take a look at that. But she and I had been friends for years. And I'll never forget, she said to me, are you sure you want to work for me? She says, we're friends. She says, we're friends. And we used to cut up and have a great time as friends. And she said, but, this is work. I said, no, I'd like to do that. So it was a competitive process. In fact, it took a little while. And, I was entertaining some other things. And I, sent a note to Paula late in 2013 and said, hey, if it's still open, I'd love to come check it out. So there was an interview process and, I was successful, thank God. Some of the other competitors, it's funny, I'm there and, they're scheduling an interview. So I'm bumping into some of the people who came down and I was worried because we had some heavyweight folks who had been in the industry vying for the job. So thank God I was successful. And it's been a thrill ever since because policy was something, as an electrical engineer, I, operate, maintain, repair equipment, install equipment, but the policy side and impact on communities was not something that I ever had done. So that was a great opportunity. Yeah.
I've had the ability to visit with Paula a few times and just what wonderful, wonderful skills and everything. She knows so many people. And what a great story is a friendship on that.
Oh
So,
yeah.
Tracy, you just hit on a couple things. As the vice president of operations, and you're working with Abe, she brings in and says, "You just nailed it," and said, "Abe is more than just a conference." Can you kind of give me a little bit about what you just meant by that?
Yes. Yeah. I um in talking to the potential members to
Right.
AABE, and even members at AABE, I share with them one, the value of a conference, and then what that tells about AABE as an
Mhm.
association. So many of our members, certainly, nominally members, and they're very active in their chapters, and they have a view that is parochial, in their chapter, in their state, very often, and they do great work. When we get to conference, one, because we structure conference, this has been consistent even before I was on staff, where it is a professional development opportunity for our network. And
Right.
so folks leave the conference equipped to inform not only the places where they work, but the communities where they live. Here is energy policy. And more importantly, here is how it impacts you. So we find
Oh,
that's what we
cool.
bring. But then the power of networking. As I said,
Oh,
early on for me, as I went to conference, I'm bumping into people. It's a networking opportunity. So you meet people from all over the country. Many of them are working in the energy space. And so, for example, when I was a project engineer, and I had a heavy underground project, and I knew other folks who did underground because I met them at the AABE conference, and I had their business card. So I dial them up and say, hey, listen, I just got this heavy underground project. And, it's, one of those growth opportunities, meaning if you did well, it could be a promotion. If you did poorly, not so good. But they were a resource to me. So I'm calling folks, that I met
yep.
through AABE. And, that
Nice.
was beneficial to me throughout my career. So, it was so many things, more than just, a networking opportunity. So I got connected to AABE, learned to love the organization, even as a chapter member. And so to be able to be on the inside and
Yep.
contribute to help make that happen for me was just a godsend. So when I was
Yep.
successful in the interview, it's been a labor of love for the last more than 7 years. Yeah.
That's kind of frightening. You don't look like you're old enough to have been here that long. I don't know if that's any, maybe that's just because I'm so old. But
No.
so, I have really I've really enjoyed getting to know you and everybody at ABE. I think it's just a phenomenal group. But the conference, when you talk about the on-site networking, that's one thing. How did this last conference change? And how do you feel the feedback was? Because then we're going to go right on into some of the key bullet points.
Okay. Yeah. You know what? The networking became a significant feedback from our members about this recent conference, because it's our second virtual conference. We
Right.
pivoted last year, and we were able to do a conference in August. There was questions about whether we'd be in person or virtual. When we decided to be
Yep.
virtual, our members right away, through their chapter presidents mainly, said, well, what about the networking opportunities? And so one of the things
Yep.
we built in, we made sure that the platform allowed for networking. So there was a community piece to the platform. And it had been there last year too, but when we mentioned it this year, a lot of our members, I saw some activity there because there was just such a need to have some sort of connection. If it wasn't face-to-face, then they would leverage that.
Yep.
We also changed the program a little bit. And so in 2 of the 3 mornings, we had what we call coffee talks. Surprisingly
Yeah.
popular.
I, I know somebody that was there.
Yeah, surprisingly popular. The Wednesday morning, I was one of the co-hosts with, the Molly Harding, who's a board member and just phenomenal in
Yep.
terms of having her finger on the pulse with things that people want to talk about. So both of the coffee talks were different in terms of topics, but a lot of activity. And so folks got a chance to connect. on
Well,
the,
one
yeah.
one really important thing, and I know I'm not supposed to give you kudos because that's just our relationship, but you got some great reviews. You had people let us know that, man, you hit it out of the park. So well done, Tracy.
Hey, I
So
appreciate that. And the feedback, yeah, I always love it, to good and constructive, but I
yep,
don't, we don't change program without the feedback. So for me, I'm always, we
yep,
try, in our planning, but it's the feedback that lets us know how we do. But those things are great, man. When we
yep,
have the opportunity to, um, let the employee, not the members really
yep,
share what's on their minds, what they want to talk about, what's going on for them. So
yep,
yeah, the coffee talks were great. And then Q&A. So what we strive to do, and as we plan the various sessions within the conference, we've shared that with our panelists, and they've been really gracious to prepare and accommodate Q&A from the audience, because it's one thing to listen to panelists, and they're very informative, for the major part of the session. But we get
right.
feedback, when we've done the webinars and even in conference, hey, this panelist answered my question. And so folks are really
Right.
excited when that occurs. So yeah, the feedback.
What uh, moving to some of the key events. I mean, some of the events were just like home runs with the hit parade of people in them. The
Right.
legislative crossfire. We had Michael Steele, Eddie Glaude, and Rick Thigpen. I mean, unbelievable. Can you tell us about the legislative crossfire section?
Yeah, certainly. We've got some history with the legislative crossfire and significant expectations from the audience. So for folks who've been with us for several years, we've seen Michael Steele once before, with Donna Brazil, and we were in person at that point. So they're back and forth on stage, and folks, weren't ready for what goes on with them. So, and it was exciting. So Crossfire has these expectations, and this year,
Right.
we did not disappoint. So we're fortunate enough to get Michael Steele back again, Eddie Glaude, who are figures that our networks, they see them on TV, and so the buzz is, wait a minute, we get to see them, with Rick at AABE, which
Isn't
gets
that
folks
neat?
to tune in. And then, just the they were, granted, there are always areas that, but they're open. Both of them are open to really share their view
Yep.
of what's going on in a broader landscape. Very outspoken in many ways about the impacts on our communities, and that's always a focus for AABE. And we don't
Yep.
always get that in other settings. So to have these two
Yep.
thought leaders speaking very frankly about energy
Yep.
policy, what they thought was important in that policy, and then impact and suggestions for our communities that we tend to advocate for, was really a coup. And when we're doing things virtually, and we know there's some things that we can't give in a virtual
Right.
setting, to be able to deliver those kind of things virtually, we were
Yep.
excited to do that. So yeah.
I'll tell you what, it seems like Abe broke the code on trying to get this virtual feel of integration with the coffee talk, bringing in the big hitters. We got Tampa 2022 coming up. Tell us about what's coming around the corner for that.
Indeed. So there's a part of when you're in this space and you're doing programming, you want to deliver the goods and certainly satisfy your audience, but you want to leave them wanting more too, and they got to
Yep.
come back for some more. And so for all the things that have transpired since we last met, we met in 2019 in Indy.
Yep.
And still, when we were in the planning in early 2018, I remember some of our folks who were close to AABE, and we said, AABE and Indy in 2019, and folks said, what's there to do in Indiana? What's there to do in Indianapolis? And that was our last
Network.
in-person.
I believe you've already said that, network, right?
Yeah, but it was fun. I mean, you know what? We did, got to ride in an Indy race car, through the streets of Indiana, Indianapolis, and, get the venues and the things that were there that we were able to take part of. Folks left in Indianapolis saying, if you didn't make it, you missed something. So for us with Tampa in 22, we'll be able, good Lord willing, to be back together face to face. There's a stoked up demand for that. Folks said, hey, I just want to see people and be able to talk to them face to face. So we'll be able to do that coming out of the pandemic. Tampa, the hotel that we were in, was built for the Super Bowl. So it's brand new. Yeah, it was built for the Super Bowl. That was our intent. Nice. We'll be, we got to push it off to 22, but a fairly new facility. So
that is really cool.
Yeah.
And do you think they'll have a digital aspect of it for those that can't travel still?
Well, we're in the early stages of planning, but I think you touched on something, Stuart. You said earlier, Stuart, digital will be with us for a while. I think that's very true. And we had talked about hybrid, even in the planning for 21. I think that we are going to need to be digital. Now we'll see how it plans out, because
I hope not. That means we get to all be face to face. So I am excited to see what's going on with AABE. And can you tell us a little bit what you got going on right now? We've got about 5 more minutes to roll into this. But Tracy, really tell us what's going on with AABE right now. I know that chapters are important. Membership is important. I'll tell you, Ralph and everybody's leadership, your leadership is phenomenal. Tell us what's going on with AABE.
Yeah, so, we, as you talked about membership, for us, staying connected with our chapters, new challenges, certainly with the pandemic. And so our chapters, they meet locally, and much of what we do is local. And so we gave them some ways to stay connected. Zoom link, a Zoom platform and other things like that. And so they're starting to, they've been doing this for a while, and they're trying to emerge and meet face to face. So we have a membership drive that's coming up, beginning in early July. We've done this for several years, and we have to give our existing members an opportunity to really go out and formally recruit new members to the AABE experience. And then we incentivize that. And a lot of the incentives have to do with 2022. So for the person that recruits the most new members to AABE, they'll be able to attend conference, which folks get a lot, really energized to be able, and with Tampa in 22 being now the first time we're back together since 2019, there's a lot of energy, and we see it, so they're asking, when does the campaign start? We want to do that. So that's one of the things that's coming up for our members. You're aware, the JEDI. So we have a JEDI framework, and the acronym, aside from the Star Wars link, it's really about justice.
Here's my lightsaber on my microphone.
That's it. Ralph says Jedi, and I said, you're giving a new meaning to the term. But the acronym is for justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. And so we were all aware of the racial unrest from the summer of 2020. We got a lot of calls from our partners, in the energy space saying, what are we going to collectively do? And part of it was advisory in nature, help us with the solution collectively. And some of it was an invitation. So, we took all of that, and Ralph talked about it at the conference, where we're building partnerships. So we have some early adopters who have come on, and others who have reached out to us, and we've got to respond and work through what those partnerships mean. But JEDI is huge for AABE.
So you've also got a business career center that we'll put in the show notes and those kind of things, which is phenomenal. The whole team at AABE is fabulous, absolutely fabulous. But also, your sponsors for the conference are year round, and corporations that see this should get a hold of you so that they can be involved with AABE on a year-round basis. The value is there, Tracy. how would they get a hold or see what value they could bring?
Yes, indeed. So getting a hold, for me, I'm there. I'm on the website. Certainly, contacting
Yeah.
me. As operations, I get to get involved with everything. So
You could funnel them in the right way, right?
that's exactly right. So you mentioned the Career Center. Kristen Smithson
Yeah.
on our staff built the Career Center, and folks have opportunities. I see in my reading a lot of opportunities that are out there, and what we can provide for them is a platform. For us, over 2,000 members, but then our network stretches in the thousands, 7,000 or so in the last count. And so for us, there's a lot of visibility at our Career Center. So I can get them to Chrisland. With the partnerships, Ralph is directly helping to negotiate, because for the partnerships, the needs are varying. So there's not one size fits all, but for an interest, we can get the partnership. So Ralph and I collectively work with any inquiries around the Energy and Equity Initiative is what we'll see formally on our website about the partnership.
Fantastic. Well, Tracy, I am so excited about everything that I've seen going on with AABE, and some of the best things are trying to spread the word about energy inequality in the disproportionately impacted communities. That to me is some of the best stories that are out there. You, Ralph, everybody has a great story to tell. And if I can make any recommendation to any of our listening corporations and people wanting to get involved, I am absolutely thrilled, and all of the contact information will be in there. You're going to have one last shot at to throw me anything you want, Tracy. Tell me what's on your mind.
Well, I appreciate the support, Stuart. When you talk about those communities, one of the things in recruiting me to AABE, Paul used to stress, she says, if we get it right for the least of these, she said, if we get the policy right for the least of these, well, everybody else will probably be okay. And so, I appreciate that you're of the same mind, that because it affects how we approach the work that we do. So having you as a partner has been phenomenal. As I said to
you.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's really because it makes a difference. Some folks do the work and, it doesn't mean they're any less qualified, but passionate about it, that's what brings results. So appreciate you.
Well, you know what? I think we need to make this, and I'm going to put you on the spot. We're going to have to make this like a regular occurrence. And so we'll work that out, because I had an absolute blast. And I know that you're an industry leader. You know things, you've got the pedigree. Did I call you a pedigree? That's horrible.
No worry. Hey, listen, that's how I approach the work, right? Okay. Yeah, no worry.
But I am so excited, and thank you very much for being a leader at AABE, a leader in the industry, and a guest on the podcast. Thank you very much.
And I appreciate the time. It's great to be with you, Stu.
Thanks.
All right.